Welcome back to On the Entrepreneur's Journey, the show where we explore how founders build companies at scale, evolve, and ultimately run without them. Today's guest is David Jemmett, a multi-time technology entrepreneur and the CEO of CISO Global. CISO Global works with organizations to secure their infrastructure, meet regulatory requirements, and respond to cyber incidents. But what makes David's perspective especially valuable is his ability to see around corners. He's built companies across multiple technology waves, from the early internet and telecom era to today's cybersecurity and compliance landscape. In this conversation, we explored David's journey as a founder, how he identified and capitalized on major technology shifts, and why cybersecurity and compliance have become leadership level issues that now sit near the top of the CEO's risk list, second only to AI disruption, as well as his vision for CISO Global's going forward. So, welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you having me.
Great. So, it seems like there's no technology where you haven't been part of, been involved in it, going back to really the early '90s and the evolution of broadband, and then ultimately the internet and everything else. But beforehand, you talked about your story of jumping out of school to start building businesses. And I'd love you to elaborate a little bit on that, both how you had the confidence to do it, but also, how you were able to do it and maybe the mentoring that was involved.
Okay, well, I appreciate the question, Peter, and hopefully I can answer it to maybe enlighten some folks. Yeah, I dropped out of school. I was living in DC at the time, and a friend of mine, Rick Adams, and this goes way back in the gray-haired days, ran a company called UUNet. It was pretty small. It had about 19 people.
Mhm.
They were one of the first backbones in the industry for internet. It was called ARPANET. And essentially, a good friend of mine worked for him, brought me in, and he kind of showed me, because I thought it was pretty interesting how, and I had to explain it back in the day, you could send a fax over your computer without ever having to touch a fax. So that, without graphics. But
Right.
I saw that as a tool that could enhance communications, and you could communicate with anybody around the world. And when I started, there was about 800,000 people on the net itself, and there wasn't a World Wide Web. So
Mhm.
uh, the journey really, the backbones were there in New York and DC, and I said, okay, I'll start one. And they go, you have to move. So I moved out to Arizona, thinking I was far enough west, but it was serendipitous because I met two of my greatest mentors within the first 2 weeks of moving here. One was a auditing firm, and another one was Run Schnell-Wilmer, who's a attorney, now leads Schnell-Wilmer. So having some folks who had 20 or 30 years of M&A experience and uh, interacting with different businesses were able to give me insight. And you said, how did I find it? I just was so young, I didn't realize how much work and effort it took, and was too dumb to think that, hey, I can't succeed at this. So a lot of patience, struggle, and pep talks from my mentors. They had no idea what I was doing, but they said it's pretty interesting. Keep going. So I did it all self-funded, put it all on credit cards, and
Wow.
sure enough, we sold to Windstar Communications, and even grew it worldwide to Backbone because they gave me the opportunity to do that.
Wow. So basically the early days of the net, and you were just, kind of feeling your way. And did you have any technology background, David, or what was it that enabled you to grow that business from, kind of scratch with, as you said, you were a college dropout, and, did you have to hire a bunch of technologists, or was this something that you were just good at?
I just happened to be good at it. And what I did before I got involved in this was I was always interested in computers and games, believe it or not. That's where a lot of the old folks come from the early days.
Yeah.
BBSs, we'd have modems and communicate through modems and send games to each other that could be played residently on your computer. Well, this technology would be able to play multiplayers eventually as we built that out. So it was more of, I put computers together. I had a BBS in my house, like 6 phone lines, which was crazy. But it was essentially, I built that infrastructure with help of other folks helping me, and essentially I adopted that model to the first company, GoodNet, and was able to take that dial up, build that up, seeing that as a revenue stream that was highly profitable, and then was able to keep continuing to build out the larger infrastructure around the country.
I got it. So you move now to, you follow the trends, and you are now focused on the cybersecurity space and compliance and things like that. And you're taking it down to middle market companies to make them, stay ahead of, the people that are breaking in and doing all that. And you created a public company, CISO Global. Um, I, as a business coach, I look at leadership teams as really having three or four functions. One is to grow revenue, grow earnings, and enterprise value, grow your people, but also your responsibility is to mitigate the risk so that the money that you make doesn't go back out the door, which is really where you come in. So in today's world where we have kind of technologies become such a big part of it, AI is now is front and center, but there's also the cybersecurity. How has this moved from IT departments and really to, I mean, you call it really a leadership team issue, and I'd love to hear what you see. Do you see that as continuing, and what's an audience member supposed to do as a CEO and looking at this? How are they supposed to think about it?
Really, it's you have to map out. A lot of times, even myself in several companies, you get frustrated, or you think about the day to day or medium payroll. Um, those things are day to day. You need to always have a 3, 6 month, year, and then a 3-year plan, and it's going to deviate based on market conditions, government shutdown, which we never thought coming.
Mhm.
So really, you need to look out in the future, but also be willing to grow and learn. If you're not learning something every day, which I try to do, like yesterday, I learned something very valuable in the business. Um, it's it won't help you grow as a company, and you want to try to not stay on the bleeding edge, but the cutting edge. And we've had panel discussions. Our software is driven by AI, and if you don't have AI in your business, you're missing the boat. And pretty soon they'll overtake your competitors will overtake you, because it's making it easier and easier to communicate to your audience, find leads, do daily tasks that eliminate at least 40% labor, as well as I can tell you ChatGPT 5.2 Pro is one of the best research tools my salespeople use. It identifies people who are looking for a trend, but more importantly, the second segment of your question was leadership. You all have to be on the same team. If you're not pulling in the same direction, I always say to the team, you're rowing in one direction. If someone's not rowing, throw them off the bus. If you're rowing against us, make sure they get thrown out. But we all need to row together. And sometimes leaders have to look at recognizing talent internally, but also externally. How can I bring someone in that would enhance this team? And
Right.
you'll see superstars, like a great salesperson can be your top 150% performer, but it's not a leader.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
to differentiate between it and bring the right leadership team in, because you can't do anything, but you can't do everything by yourself. But you need to be aware and have those people in place that can do things that you could probably do, but you would rely on to help save you time, as well as ask their experience. Be open to listening to your team members.
Right. Right. So in terms of your, but the cybersecurity lane that you're in,
Mhm.
um, the leadership. So if I'm talking to a leadership team and we're talking about risk mitigation and growing your revenue and all the things that really they're responsible for. Um, are there some best practices that you think a company should have in place just as a minimum for um, to make sure that their intellectual property and they're not held up for ransom and all the things that we read about and all the money that goes out the door. What should a CEO think about right now in terms of the minimum required to keep their business safe?
Well, there's two um, thought processes that CEOs have. Number one, they don't know that they're a risk. So they are oblivious to this black hole, which is called cybersecurity.
Right.
Um, the other is, I know about it. It keeps me up at night. Are we safe? And so sometimes, in fact, I just wrote on LinkedIn, sometimes IT groups have been with you for 20 years, right? Well, infrastructure and today's way we do business has changed dynamically between 20 years ago to 6 months ago, and it keeps evolving. And so, really, what you need to do is have somebody come in. If you're trying to protect something, it's not a matter of if anymore, because people go, "Oh, I'll never be hacked." A great or a great analogy, a great uh, white paper we wrote was one of the potential board members, Andy McCain, who's John McCain's late Senator McCain's son,
Right.
runs the largest distributor for Anheuser-Busch. And before he set him aboard, I want to see what you do. And after we got done, we said, here's all the issues that you have. And it's not because your IT team, and the IT team said they were one of the few I've run into, said, hey, we don't understand that. Can you help us? And we talked to the CFO. He goes, we'll do it next quarter. And they were kind of oblivious. He goes, I sell beer for a living. Why would they want to take advantage of it?
Right.
Because you make a lot of money. And about 2.5 weeks later, I got a call at 9:30 at night from Andy that said, I've been breached. I need help. And we don't talk about customers who've been breached unless they have us, give us permission as well as written consent. Most of them don't like to talk about being breached, but he learned a valuable lesson. Yesterday, while we were talking about one of the products, we looked at what he had been, his logs. He, to this date, over 30 days, have been hit 38.2 million times to be breached. And none of them got through, and we're managing that. And that's interesting because if he didn't have an infrastructure, he would have had multiple breaches. And so people need to think, hey, my IT team says they've got it in hand. What reality is, get a second set of eyes, professional. There's plenty of CISO Globals. That, by the way, is Chief Information Security Officer. There's plenty of folks out there talented enough. We go in and look at your attack surface or your company's infrastructure. We pretend we're hackers. We essentially are, and we'll find the weakness and tell you about it. Now it's up to you whether you want to remediate it or not. But a second
Right.
set of eyes are really important because over time, people get distracted or they overlook something, and we're the ones that find the discrepancies or some of the soft spots.
So the other thing that, of course, is really hard to defend is the people who are let in by the employees. We always talk about the human element. You can put up firewalls, but if somebody lets somebody in the door, they're the criminal is inside the building. Do you also perform training to the employees to recognize people who are phishing or doing the types of nefarious activities that your systems can't you know protect against really unless there's how do you I guess I say how do you deal with the human element of this?
It's tough, and yes, we have training courses we provide. It's not our own software, but we use KnowBe4. We
Yeah.
encourage companies who deal with credit cards or have a lot of employees in and out with information, whether it's personal healthcare information with healthcare or PII, which is personal identification information. If you have any of that, including your own employees, you should, and people in your company have access to it, they should be trained once a quarter. And it's interesting, we go in and do it. We've seen failure rates of up to 65%. Some people are smart enough to go, that's a bad email, but they're becoming so sophisticated. You need to look out for identifiers of what could be wrong. And if you think it's wrong, stop, call the other person, make sure they send it to you. But those training, we end up seeing it become 98%, 99%. Essentially, it's about 99 because 1% still clicks on it, which puts you at risk. But it really is educational to help the folks understand what the environment is where, what to look for. And I'll tell you, I've actually almost been fooled a couple of times because I had to step back and take a look at it and go, wow, that's really sophisticated. I would have never gotten.
Right, right. So let's step to the business model. I would assume that you're trying to build a recurring revenue stream as much as possible in terms of getting clients and getting on retainers and providing services on a sort of recurring revenue basis. Is the the percentage of your revenue, is it mostly recurring revenue? I mean, I'm sure you do, you're called in as sort of red Adair, you're the fireman when somebody does get breached. But, how much of the revenue in your model is recurring that you're able to really attract a high multiple on?
As of last quarter, is about 74% is recurring revenue.
Okay.
We looked in this year, 2026, to move that to about 79% recurring because of our software.
Right.
And like you said, the fireman approach, yeah, we're there as firemen. We want to put the fire out, but we want to protect you from getting there.
Right.
So we encourage folks to help us work with their IT team or help look at their infrastructure holistically to see how we can, make it more secure. I always jokingly say, how do I outrun a bear? I just have to be faster than you are. Well, hackers are looking for an easy target or one that is, government now sponsored, different aspects of that. But what you really want to do in a mid-sized to small enterprise organization, make it so it's harder for them to do it. And is it more inexpensive for someone to manage that for you so they see it 24/7 so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And I guess that's the question is, at what size does a company say I should bring this in-house and I should maintain this infrastructure myself? And where's the tipping point where, it makes sense to have an outside firm managing it? I'm sure you're doing it remotely and you're tied into people's systems. So you're monitoring things from your offices or your location. And when is that crossing point, where, somebody really needs to bring it internally into their organization?
I'm pragmatic. So if you're a startup company, you should build a foundation of security first, right? And put that in mind as you start to grow it. Also, are you struggling to keep your business open? Are you making cash flow? Can you afford, how much is your IT and how much can that be absorbed with, security? It really depends on how large the client is. So we have clients that have multiple dental practices. We have a large faith-based organization, one of the largest in the world, and they're small. They have 2-3 computers in each location. They have it over multiple. So we were called in about 3 months ago, and it kind of shocked me. A 3-store laundromat got breached, but they were highly profitable.
Yeah.
Took about $67,000 of the money and then demanded that they turn over because they had their point of sale service POS system in place. Mm-hmm. They encrypted it. It was pretty easy to get the vendor to replace that, but it was pretty tough with the encrypted files to unencrypt it and put the customer database back. But they had incoming, but as small as they were, that actually crippled them for a while because half of their machines were digital.
Right. Right. So, Dana, as you look forward, you've got, AI coming in. How is that affecting cybersecurity attacks, and how are you defending against it? How is it changing how you deliver your services?
AI is so it's not kids in hoodies. Back when I was back in ARPANET/internet building out the infrastructure,
Hmm.
my first hack was 1992. Most people didn't even know what the internet was in 1992. But there were four kids in hoodies, and by the way, they became my employees to keep them out of juvenile hall with 2 years
Right,
probation. The only place they could use a computer was in my office. So that's graduated to state-sponsored hackers. I think
right.
you saw that, in Venezuela, it's public knowledge. Venezuela, we shut off and did a cyber attack on their infrastructure to put the lights out. Well, we can do that. Look at China and Russia. They're constantly trying to penetrate the US to steal anything intellectual property, disrupt services. I mean, there's a litany of things, and they're actually sponsored by governments getting paid for them, and they get to keep the cash too. So
Hmm.
AI has enhanced that. Instead of manually having to do it, I think I can't remember the firm, but they did a report, and the last hack they actually took and deconstructed, 85% of that attack on 813 banks was specifically done by AI.
Hmm.
That's going to be probably close to 99%. All they're going to have to do is physically put in the attack, vector of where they want to attack, and then essentially take out the capital and distribute it. That's an AI
Hmm.
is doing those things today. It's only going to get worse. And so AI is an important piece of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is just a word. It's strengthening and enhancing your posture so that external threats don't come through. And
Right,
AI is constantly prodding you. In
right.
fact, you have a cell phone. When's the last time you turned on a cell phone or bought one?
A few months ago, December, actually last month.
Just last month. When you
Yes.
turned it on for the first time, within 11 seconds, bots were already pinging that address.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that's how quickly it is. There's so many bots out there. They're constantly looking for how to get in.
Hmm. Crazy, crazy. Okay. Um, I know you run a public company, so it's probably, there's all the safe harbor rules around that, what you can say. But I'd love to hear your view of the next, 3 or 4 years, because not necessarily the numbers, but your industry view on how people are supposed to look at this space, both for the business and as our audience members who are consumers of your product. How are they supposed to think about things going forward?
Research, it's amazing. You have it on your phone. You have Gronk, you have Gemini, you have ChatGPT, you have Copilot. I would encourage any leadership or any individual. Cyber is still a mystery to people. So, but AI is in our houses today. It's in
Right.
our businesses. Uh, Believe it or not, every one of us so far have probably been profiled in an AI system somewhere. If you belong to Microsoft, you have Google. So the interesting thing is inform yourself, ask questions, say, what can I do to improve looking for cyber threats, or what can I do to improve my personal health or personal cyber health inside my house? Because everything you have in is Wi-Fi, I'm sure, your TVs,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Alexa.
Yeah.
So
Everything.
how can I make it better? And they'll say, turn these settings on your router, or on your phone when you go into a public setting, turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Because there's these little tools that I can sit in Starbucks and you'll never know, and I can actually look and hit every open port and start to get that information that you're sending in and out. So just get you educated. Ask Copilot, ask Gemini, and in 3 to 4 years, um, people say it's going to be more lazy or it's taking away the workforce. I think just like the internet came in and said, "Oh, it's going to completely to destroy, businesses, a tsunami of change." It really took people moving from jobs to becoming more secure, or becoming engineers, or becoming ways to make that more efficient through communication. Cybersecurity and AI, mainly AI, is going to make your job easier. It'll enhance your business, and you don't want to be left out. I mean, I know of a pizza place that has 15 locations. They're actually doing concerted AI efforts on where their demographics are. How can they be more efficient? It's just simple things like that. I think it's not 4 to 5 years from now. I think 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a dynamic change.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. David, how is it? How are people, if they want to engage with you or engage with your firm and talk about these issues? How is it best for them to get in touch with you?
Easiest thing is call our main number or go to
Mm,
our website, which is www.ciso.inc. So
okay.
INC is incorporated, and CISO is
Yeah.
Chief Information Security Officer.
Okay. And great. Well, thank you for your time today. It's such a changing environment, and I don't know how anybody keeps up with it if they don't have somebody with your level of expertise out there that are monitoring their activities, especially for middle market companies that are don't have the wherewithal and need the expertise and can't afford an IT department. Very important to have somebody like you on their side, and I would encourage all clients to do that. So thank you for your time today, David, and thank you to the audience for joining the on the entrepreneur's journey today. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Peter.